All right, everyone. Welcome to Deuteronomy, and we have a fun little quiz today, courtesy of Carter. And for those of you who don't already know, what book of Deuteronomy are we on? Because he erased what I had written. You get 20 from that? Yep. From the squiggles? Just had Cadillac surgery. A cataract? I drive a Lincoln.
Boy, you're going to drive a quad. Boy, you're going to drive me to drink some stuff right in that hot.
Oh. Oh. There's a joke from my coworker, but I don't think it's appropriate for church. Yeah, one of the good old boys. All right, yes, we are in fact in Deuteronomy 20. Welcome back to Throttle Up Bible Biker Study. And I think it's going to be kind of a short one. I think the guys will really like it because we're going over war. You know.
What is it good for?
Or the other one, war never changes. Wah. Yep. So I think it'll be kind of a short one tonight. If we do get into chapter 21, we get to talk about taking female slaves, I guess, for lack of a better word, or second wives. And I get, concubine.
Gotta get the appropriate word in this place.
Contrabine, yeah. No. The contrabine, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Well, before we get into all that, let's go to the Lord. Just a little bit of prayer and fire us up and get us going. Thank you, Lord, for giving us this awesome place to fellowship and to grow closer to you. And thank you especially for this nice heat on this cold day. I think it's supposed to get real cold tonight. So just thank you for this place to come, fellowship, as iron sharpens iron, work on each other, Lord. And we just thank you for all of your many blessings. So please open up our eyes, hearts, and ears while we're here to listen to what you're trying to tell us. Amen. Yeah, I was writing this out last night. And verse 1, even, like, just kind of, if you take it a little out of context, it's just like, oh, yes. And then, like, verses 2 through more, it just gets better. All right, chapter 20, verse 1. When you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God, who brought you up from the land of Egypt, is with you. All right, we can stop right there. It's coming up, but the quote always sticks in my mind, you know. The Lord fights our battles for us. Sometimes I feel like we just have to show up. And later, this becomes important. This becomes important later on. I have my secondary note here in Judges 7 with the army of Gideon. So we're going to go over the rules of how they kind of shrink the army in a way. But yeah, when the odds are not in your favor, trust the Lord. He fights our battles for us. And I love how Moses kind of with every time he reminds Israel, it starts with a history lesson, you know. The Lord your God who brought you up from the land of Egypt. It's always a history lesson before he gets to his point. It's like, hey, you know, I'm not asking you to trust God for no reason. Trust God because you've seen firsthand. Well, and at this time it would be their parents, what their parents went through. So, And show no fear because the Lord is with you. And it kind of reminds us of Romans 8:31. If God is with us, who can be against us? Which I will say right now, it kind of feels like the entire world's against Christians. So if God is with us and we're with God, it just means that everything that's not of God is against us. Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah. We got the cheat code, really. All right. So verses 2 through 4. When you are approaching the battle, the priest shall come near and speak to the people. He shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, you are approaching the battle against your enemies today. Do not be faint-hearted, do not be afraid, or panic, or tremble before them. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. So I like how right before they're about to go to war, the priest's job was really to teach and encourage the soldiers. It's like they're studying right before the test, getting that last little bit of cram in. And another kind of interesting point with Israel is that the Lord fights their battles. When they are obedient, they could never lose. When they're disobedient, they could never win. And we'll find that here in Joshua 7 of them not being able to win. Let me turn to that real fast. I tried those little sticky notes that are like for page reminders, and they just wrote pages. They're not, they say they're removable, but they're not. So, Joshua chapter 7, verse 1. But the sons of Israel acted unfaithfully in regard to the things under the ban, which means things that were, you could kind of take it as sacrifice to God, or God says to not touch them, or set aside for God. God would say, especially in things regarding the Canaanites, like, hey, all this stuff is to be burned, But Israel, a couple people, did not burn, or they took plunder that they weren't supposed to take, so they acted unfaithfully. So under the ban, for Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, took some of the things under the ban. Therefore the anger of the Lord burned against the sons of Israel. Verse 2. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth Aven, east of Bethel, and said to them, Go up and spy out the land. So the men went up and spied out Ai, or I don't know how they pronounce it. Yeah. Artificial intelligence. I mean, don't you mean government? It's like military intelligence, two words that can't make sense. Nah. But, so go. They returned to Joshua and said to him, Do not let all the people go up. Only about 2,000 or 3,000 men need to go up to Ai. Do not make all the people toil up there, for they are few. So about 3,000 men from the people went up there, and they fled, or went up there, but they fled from the men of Ai. The men of Ai struck down 36 of their men and pursued them from the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them down on the descent, so the hearts of the people melted and became as water. So, big defeat for them being disobedient. Like immediately, as soon as they were disobedient, they faced defeat. So when they're obedient, they can... But the sins of the few affected all of Israel. Well, and this is... Yeah. So, but we'll find that You know, the sin of one man is a whole big problem for all of Israel, really. Oh yeah, they had and will. All right, turning back to Deuteronomy here, verses 5 through 9. The officers shall speak to the people, saying, "Who is the man who has built a new house and not dedicated it? Let him depart and return to his house, otherwise he might die in the battle, and another man would dedicate it. Who is the man who has planted a vineyard and has not begun to use its fruit? Let him depart and return to his house, otherwise he might die in battle, and another man would begin to use its fruit. And who is the man that is engaged to a woman and has not married her? Let him depart and return to his house, otherwise he might die in battle, and another man would marry her." Then the officers shall speak further to the people and say, "Who is the man that is afraid and faint-hearted? Let him depart and return to his house, so that he might not make his brother's hearts melt like his heart." When the officers have finished speaking to the people, they shall appoint commanders of armies at the head of the people. All right. So, what's my reference for this here? Judges 7. So that battle at Gideon, I think they had like 32,000 people for that battle. Then they said, "Who is faint-hearted?" 22,000 left. And the army was still too big for what they needed to do, so they had to shrink it even more. Yes. But this part right here pulls into a lot of it's just practical. You know, Moses commanded the officers to send away all who had unfinished business at home. You know, new house, vineyard, or other investment, fiance, or they were afraid. Exactly. They could have too many things on their mind and not keep their mind on the task at hand. But you can't have, for an army to be effective, you can't have soldiers with mixed motives. You know, it's just bad tactics for one. But this, by and large, the size of the army is irrelevant. If God's doing the fighting, the size of the army is irrelevant. You know, the size of the giant didn't matter with David and Goliath. You know, God still brought Goliath down. So it's interesting in a way because the size of the army doesn't matter. But the other part of this, especially with the fearful part of this, is they want soldiers that want to be there, not forced to be there. You know, and you don't want soldiers who are afraid and rat out the position of other soldiers if they get captured or, you know, become a prisoner of war. Granted, that wasn't really common during this time. They would just be put to death, but still, if someone's afraid for their own skin, they might be more tempted to not take care of their countrymen. And if the size of the army is not important to God, then the heart of the army must be more important to God. You know, no mixed motives, you know, small and effective army, fully dependent on God. And when they won, it would be all of the glory to God. No one could really puff up and be like, "Well, because I was there." You know, like it's like 300 taking on 30,000 people or whatever it is. Yeah, God was with you. All right. Any questions on that part? Now we get to a more complicated part. So verses 10 and 11 here. When you approach a city to fight against it, you shall offer it terms of peace. If it agrees to make peace with you and opens to you, then all the people who are found in it shall become your forced labor and shall serve you. So, Yes, but it's not. So my Bible says forced labor. Another translation says pays tribute. So, how do I want to say this? So, Israel's kind of default modus operandi for how they go to war is they go to war, they surround the city, they make an offer of peace unless they are superseded by an order from God. Just like it's coming up later in this chapter, like the Canaanites were to be totally destroyed. You know, everything that breathes was to be totally destroyed. But for other nations farther out, then it was first an offer of peace. And instead of forced labor, tribute. Tribute means that their little nation or their land or their government of that area is fully subservient to Israel for government. And they pay Israel tribute, money, goods, livestock, to continue living in the land or living in general. So, not so much as a slave as forced labor would imply. It's more of like, hey, you know, we've taken over this land, but you can continue living in it, but you're going to contribute back to us or pay rent. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty common concept all throughout history. Yeah, Egyptians did it, Romans did it. Yeah, British did it until we wrote them out a nice complaint list direct to their king about all the things we were unhappy about. And we kicked their tea in the harbor. But what do you guys think? So, what do you guys kind of think of 10 and 11 there? Anything I missed or anything else come to mind for you guys? No? Okay. Just kind of looking at James back there. I could hear the Jeopardy music. No worries, no worries. All right, verses 12 through 15. However, if it does not make peace with you, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. When the Lord your God gives it into your hand, you shall strike all the men in it with the edge of the sword. Only the women and the children and the animals, and all that is in the city and all its spoil you shall take as booty for yourself. Are you laughing because I said booty? A likely story. Yep. So you shall take as booty for yourself, and you shall use the spoil of your enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. Thus you shall do to all the cities that are very far away from you, which are not of the cities of the nations nearby. All right, let's stop there. So, what does besiege mean? It's not a word we use a whole lot. Besiege. Yeah, it's like all the old Robin Hood movies where they have like the battering ram and they break down the wall. Yep, take it by force until they throw the cows over the wall. But yeah, break down the city walls, cut supplies, weaken the city through hunger or thirst, either to surrender or defeat. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So yes, you essentially cut the city off and start breaking it down until it either surrenders or you defeat it. But the key for this is for all faraway lands, and all fighting age males must be killed to prevent them from uprising. Exactly. They were to be treated like they would always be a perpetual enemy. But the women and children were spared, and the livestock was spared, and they were taken as booty or spoils, really, because at that time in history, the armies were funded by whatever they could plunder. Yes. Yep. Yep. So then, as much as it is today, as Brother James has said, fighting age male means everyone 13 age 13 and up. So you better hope you're 12 and a half, I suppose. I'm sure, they probably had to be dealt with. Some of them probably had to be dealt with. Some of them probably kicked in line. So that's just how it was done. All right. Any questions on that part? Yep. 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 So I guess over in Israel today, they start in high school. They start picking out the biggest and brightest to be fighter pilots. Yep. Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't be. Well, I don't know. I used to say I wouldn't be opposed to mandatory military service for the United States. However, given current people in charge, it would give me a moment of pause. You know. But that's. Oh yeah. All right. Coming back in from that little aside, let's get to the part we've been waiting for: total destruction. Fred already knows what I'm about to read. All right, verse 16. Only in the cities of these peoples that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, you shall not leave alive anything that breathes, but you shall utterly destroy them: the Hittite and the Amorite, the Canaanite and the Perizzite, the Hivite and the Jebusite and the Jobsite, and the termite. Yep. That the Lord your God has commanded you, so that they may not teach you to do according to all of their detestable things which they have done for their gods, so that you would sin against the Lord your God. All right. So what makes this commandment so much different from the other commandment? So idols, yes. Yeah. So the other rules were to make war for more territory. This is a war of judgment. This is God's divine judgment on all these people to wipe them off the face of the planet. And why, it's not for conquest or for them to surrender, it's for total destruction. And, yep. Well, and it's because they were so, like Pop said, they were so morally bankrupt that complete destruction was ordered. Because we have to remember that they had, they served the god of fertility, so they'd have huge, weird sex orgies and all that, but they also practiced child sacrifice to Molech. So God was like, yeah, you got to take them out. No, there's nothing redeemable here. So men, women, children, livestock, all of it. Yes. So this is a war of judgment. All right. And now that the killing's done, we get to talk about agriculture. Well, this is talking about agriculture while you're still killing things. I guess I jumped a little bit too far ahead. So, when you besiege a city a long time to make war against it in order to capture it, you shall not destroy its trees by swinging an axe against them, for you may eat from them, and you shall not cut them down. For is the tree of a field a man that it should be besieged by you? Only trees which you know are not fruit trees you shall destroy and cut down, that you may construct siege works against the city that is making war with you until it falls. Yep. Yep. I still kind of laugh how this is written. For is the tree of a field a man that it should be besieged by you? What's the tree done to you, man? Yep. 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 Well, and it's common at this time, for all the troops to be in all the hill country around whatever they're besieging. And they're scavenging for food, supplies, everything. They're scavenging for everything that they're not letting the city have. So, no worries. I mean, we're pretty much at the end of the chapter. You guys want to go into 21? Or you guys want to have a shorter night? Oh. Well, then I guess we'll talk about the first part of 21. Yeah. There it goes. Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Where was I reading last night? So there was a siege that took so long that the people had resorted to cannibalism. Gosh, where was it? I think it's Samuel.
Did you say Donner? They both work the same.
There. Yeah. Give me just a second here. I'll pull it up. It's interesting. Oh. I was incorrect. It's 2 Kings. Yeah, here. Yep. Yep. 2 Kings, chapter 6, verses 24 through 33. This translation is New King James. And it happened after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his army and went up and besieged Samaria. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and indeed they besieged it until a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and 1/4 of a cob of dove droppings was for 5 shekels of silver. Then as the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, "Help, my lord, O king." And he said, "If the Lord does not help you, from where can I find help for you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress?" Then the king said to her, "What is troubling you?" And she answered, "This woman said to me, 'Give your son that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow.' So I boiled my son and ate him, and said to her on the next day, 'Give your son that we may eat him,' but she has hidden her son." Now it happened when the king heard the words of this woman, or heard the words of the woman, that he tore his clothes, and as he passed by on the wall, the people looked, and there underneath he had sackcloth on his body. So, great distress. So yes, sieges could take quite a long time, so don't cut down your fruit trees while you're trying to capture another city. But the other part of this, too, is their immediate need was less important than their long-term needs. You know, when they won or when they captured that city, you know, this is looking after their long-term needs. You know, everybody likes a fruit tree, so I'm sure Israel's real estate value on, Redfin would go up. All right. So, as we move into 21, I don't have my full notes written out, but the first section of 21 up through verse 9 is pretty self-explanatory in a way. So I'll go ahead and start on 21, verse 1, unless you guys have any questions. Okay. So my Bible says, expiation of a crime. So we went over the word expiation last week. Anyone remember? Yeah, atonement, really. So, if a slain person is found lying in the open country in the land which the Lord your God gives you to possess, and is not known who has struck him, then your elders and your judges shall go out and measure the distance to the cities which are around the slain one. Then it shall be the city which is nearest to the slain man. That is, the elders of that city shall take a heifer of the herd which has not worked and which is not pulled in a yoke. And the elders of that city shall bring the heifer down to a valley with running water, which has not been plowed or sown, and shall break the heifer's neck there in the valley. So I like how specific the Jews are. You know, it's like, well, we're going to pull out this giant tape measure to figure out which city is closest to this dead man. Then it's your problem. But like if it wasn't written down, they'd argue about it. Like, you just know they would. That's your dead guy. No, it's my dead guy. No. So I could just see it happening, especially like later when Jesus comes and he's talking about the people who lengthen their tassels or make their phylactery box super big so they can act all holier than thou. I could just see it. That's my dead body. I will give the sacrifice for this mysterious dead man. Yeah, I could see it happening. All right. So verse 5. Then the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come near, for the Lord your God has chosen them to serve him and bless in the name of the Lord, and every dispute and every assault shall be settled by them. All the elders of that city which is nearest the slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley, and they shall answer and say, Our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it. Forgive your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, O Lord, and do not place the guilt of innocent blood in the midst of your people Israel, and the blood guiltiness shall be forgiven them. So you shall remove the guilt of innocent blood from your midst when you do what is right in the eyes of the Lord. So why is this important? Why would they go through all this effort to have essentially a sacrifice for just a random dead person found in the woods? Right? So in case he was murdered. Well, and this is very specific too, so it's like I think we could assume that they would know whether the man died of a heart attack or a stroke versus was actually killed. So I think this would be more correct to interpret it as in the case of an unsolved murder with no, like a cold case, I suppose you could say. So, yeah. Well, someone of Israel probably did it. So you're saying they're taking the Shaggy approach. It wasn't me. Well, the other part of this, and I didn't write my reference down for this, but earlier in Deuteronomy, I forget exactly where, but the blood taints the land, you know. And the only way the land can have expiation is if the one who shed the blood, their life was taken, which it kind of goes back into, um, what's the word I'm looking for? The Avenger of Blood. It goes into the Avenger of Blood. That's what I was looking for. Because that way Israel wouldn't be tainted by an unnecessary killing or having the blood guiltiness on all of Israel. So he who shed the blood, his blood shall be shed. So I think that's kind of the other half of the reason why they would shed blood to cover the blood that had been shed, even if it was a heifer. Any questions on that? Or anything I missed? All right. Yeah. I mean, they might have had a bunch of laws, but like I like God. I like that God wants certain sacrifices because man, when you smell meat cooking, you're like, yes. Oh yeah. I mean, who doesn't get like, you know, just the best chicken breast? They're like, oh yeah, wave offering. Well, I think we'll leave it there on that food note. You know, it's a good Tubbs when we talk about food and music. Have a musical reference, at least one. All right. Well, this Friday we do not have pray and play. It'll be next Friday. What day is the date? Yeah. Yeah, on the 15th. The 17th is our cookout, or like Christmas. Oh. You, you, you Southerners. I just consider everything you guys do down here a cookout. It could happen. Vicky's over here like, you ever go to church and just like a tailgate party breaks out? So yeah, this Sunday, I thought there might have been something going on this Saturday that I think I'm forgetting. Ah, yes, Saturday is the meal for family promise. Okay, and then this Sunday we have regular church service at 11. Romans chapter 11. 11 and 11. Yep. Like always. Yeah. And then the only thing after that would be this coming Wednesday as well, which will be, I guess, the rest of Deuteronomy chapter 21 and maybe part of chapter 22, the contentious chapter. All right, well, we're going to go to personal and private prayer requests, and I'll see you guys next time.